Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, My Hero Academia, Sand Fruit. Chapter 51. While speaking, Ishimura pointed at Su Yuan. Bakugo Katsuki frowned slightly, looked at Su Yuan, and said in a deep voice, "Do you have a grudge against him?" "Well, that's right. A year ago, he attacked the office and I had a fight with him." Su Yuan said calmly. "Today I am no longer the same person I was a year ago, Bakugo Katsuki. Today next year will be your death anniversary," Ishimura said slowly. Undoubtedly, Bakugo Katsuki had the biggest reaction to Ishimura's words. I told you, he is not Bakugo Katsuki, his name is Kitagawa Su Yuan, I am Bakugo Katsuki." Bakugo Katsuki was so angry that his whole body trembled. After just saying that, I would thank myself and let myself go. The next thing I said, I would say, today next year is your death anniversary. Who can bear this? Baikuan Su Yuan. Ishimura was slightly startled. He seemed to have heard this name somewhere, but he couldn't remember it for a while. "It doesn't matter," Ishimura smiled. Bakugo Katsuki was furious and ran wildly, sparks popping out of his palms. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Ishimura, waving his hands. Boom boom boom. With every move of his palm, a ball of flame would burst out from his palm. Since he was not wearing combat attire, he could not store what was secreted from his palm. Bakugo Katsuki punched dozens of times in one breath, but none of them hit Ishimura. "Are you still stubborn?" Ishimura said to Bakugo Katsuki while dodging. Bakugo Katsuki ignored it and continued to attack Ishimura. "Kid, I've already given you a chance. If you don't know how to behave, then you won't blame me, Shikun." Shikun said coldly. Then he did a somersault and separated himself from Bakugo Katsuki. "Since you are looking for death, I will help you," Ishimura said, waving his hands, and a ball of white liquid appeared out of thin air in front of him. Ishimura pulled it, and the liquid suddenly turned into a transparent spear. Swish, swish, swish. After holding the spear in his hand, Ishimura quickly ran towards Bakugo Katsuki. Dancing with the spear, he stabbed Bakugo Katsuki hard. With Bakugo Katsuki's speed, it is now difficult to defeat Ishimura. "Call out." Seeing that the spear was about to pierce his abdomen, Bakugo Katsuki quickly grabbed the tail of the spear with both hands. The sharp tail directly scratched the palm of his hand, and bright red blood fell to the ground along his weapon. "It hurts. Ha 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 ha." Ishimura began to laugh ferociously. Pushing forward slightly, Bakugo Katsuki grabbed the tail tightly and was pushed back. "I'm going to kill you." Bakugo Katsuki shouted angrily, grabbed the tail and threw it sideways. Immediately afterwards, the sparks on his palms flew even more fiercely. He waved his hands and pushed towards Ishimura's abdomen. Boom! A ball of flame exploded directly on his abdomen, and immediately after, Ishimura was pushed back dozens of meters by the impact. Hoo-ho! On his abdomen, thick black smoke slowly rose, and almost all the clothes on his abdomen were burned. He simply pulled it, shirtless, and smiled at Bakugo Katsuki. "The warm-up activities have been completed. Next, bear the wrath of Ishimura." "Ha ha ha." Ishimura laughed ferociously. Bakugo Katsuki's face was a little stiff, he looked at Ishimura with a frown and cursed. At this moment, Ishimura moved his hands again, and a large group of transparent liquid appeared again. I saw his hand slapping the ground hard, and immediately after, the large group of transparent liquid flew directly into the sky. In midair, the liquid turned into a huge spear, and then began to fall at the fastest speed. "Take your innocence and disappear." Undoubtedly, unless Bakugo Katsuki can teleport now, he will not be able to avoid the large-scale attack of Ishimura's attack. Bakugo Katsuki looked up and looked at the rapidly descending spear, his face a little pale. Zzzz. Sparks appeared once again on the palm of his hand. Yes, he wanted to use his own strength to try to block the blow. "You don't want to use your quirks to take this move." As the words fell, Su Yuan had already arrived at Bakugo Katsuki's side. I advise you not to do this. Your current strength simply cannot handle this move." Bakugo Katsuki was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. What time of day was it now, and he was still saying these cool words here? "Your hands are bleeding a lot, please take a rest," Su Yuan said. Bakugo Katsuki suddenly sank a little. He was stunned and lowered his head. At this time, the grass he had collected before had now turned into sand. Drink, Su Yuan shouted softly. The ground shook, and two huge sand hands rose up. Boom, two huge sand hands directly grabbed the spear formed by the rapidly falling transparent liquid. Whoosh, the sand that was hit fell down with a splash. Just stay cool, Su Yuan said to Bakugo Katsuki, then waved his hand. A ball of sand pushed directly to the other side. After rolling dozens of times, Bakugo Katsuki stopped. Then, he slowly stood up and saw the two huge hands made of sand above Su Yuan's head. At this moment, he deeply felt the gap in strength. Bakugo Katsuki doubted his own strength for the first time. I couldn't catch the move even with all my strength, but Su Yuan managed to catch it easily. I also talked about big things, saying that I wanted to defeat the whole class and become the first. Now, I probably can't even beat that guy with half the face. I'm followed closely by Shuju. As long as I relax even a little bit, Shuju will definitely surpass me. Hateful. From this moment on, Bakugo Katsuki has also made up his mind to become stronger. It seems that you haven't taken a break this year. I don't think you are comfortable with your current situation, Ishimura said disdainfully. You are the same. You are practicing so hard just to kill me. Su Yuan replied with a sneer. Of course, but you can only be considered one of them. No one in Miyagawa's office can escape the fate of death, Ishimura said slowly. Ha ha ha. Su Yuan couldn't help laughing and replied, are you so sure of your strength? You think you are invincible after practicing for a year? Listening to what Su Yuan said, Ishimura laughed. I dare not say that I am invincible, but with my quirks, even the #1 professional hero's all might will fall on me sooner or later. In hand. Sooner or later. Haha, how many years from now will All Might be in a wheelchair? Su Yuan sneered. Ishimura frowned. You are quite capable of playing tricks. While speaking, he waved his hand just like before, and a group of transparent liquid appeared. Then, he pulled, and the transparent liquid turned into dozens of sharp arrows. Let me see what else you can do besides talking nonsense. After that, he shook his hands directly. Whoosh whoosh. Dozens of sharp arrows flew directly towards Su Yuan. However, just when the sharp arrow was about to hit Su Yuan, the sand shield began to automatically defend. Bang bang bang. Dozens of sharp arrows were all inserted into the sand. This kind of attack did not even blink an eye. Call. At this moment, behind Su Yuan, a huge ball of liquid hit him directly. Boom. The airflow directly picked up the smoke and dust. Ha ha ha, it seems that you are really only good at talking nonsense. Ishimura mocked. As soon as he finished speaking, a voice sounded behind him. But, I feel like I'm good at both, Su Yuan said softly. When Shikun heard this, his expression changed drastically and he quickly turned around. As for Su Yuan, armament hockey covered his hand and punched him hard on the head. Boom, Ishimura flew backwards. The reason for using armament hockey is simple, because Ishimura's quirks are liquid, and his body is so slippery that you can't capture them. For example, if you hit him with an ordinary punch, it will miss his body and not cause any harm to him. Since the last battle, Su Yuan has learned that his armament hockey can break this point. Not only can he be captured, but Su Yuan can also catch the liquid released by Shikun. After Ishimura flew backwards, he stabilized his feet with 10 backflips. He touched his red and swollen face, and then spit out a mouthful of saliva mixed with blood. He muttered, this guy, like last time, touched my body again. Could it be that his quirks have some restraint on my quirks? In previous battles, Ishimura had almost never been touched by anyone, not even All Might, if he hadn't possessed the power of absolute suppression. It is estimated that it is not difficult to meet myself. At this time, Su Yuan also became interested. In the afternoon, he wanted to test his limits but could not. However, now, he can let go and test it. There is no one living for several kilometers around. Just grass and trees. Over the past year, he has studied many moves, but he had no place to test them with others. At Shongying's training venue, he could only use a dozen moves with a smaller range to attack. Moreover, you cannot attack as you wish, you have to consider whether it will cause the risk of death to others. Now, this is a great opportunity, the place is suitable, and the villains are not too weak. If there is a chance, then I definitely can't hold back my moves, I have to show them all. Su Yuan said calmly. The next moment, there was a swish sound, and a pair of wings made of sand grew out of his back. Then, he flapped his wings and flew towards the minister in midair. Shi Kun frowned as he watched Su Yuan flying into the sky. He was very curious as to why Su Yuan's quirks could be used in this way. This quirks is really annoying, Ishimura said with a frown. At this time, Su Yuan was already staying in midair. You have to be prepared, Shi Kun. Su Yuan grinned and shouted, Sand rain. As soon as he finished speaking, the wings behind Su Yuan began to flap rapidly. Every time he flaps his wings, there will be 32 sharp arrows made of sand on one side of the wings and shot towards the stone village on the ground. Ishimura watched countless sharp arrows flying towards him, but he didn't panic at all. An attack like this can't do any harm to me at all, Ishimura said calmly. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and a transparent liquid wall appeared in front of him. When the first sharp arrow hit the liquid wall, it went directly through it, and when it hit the ground, it directly exploded a hole. Ishimura suddenly frowned, threw away the liquid wall, and started running wildly. Boom, boom. Wherever Ishimura passed, there was a big explosion, and now he was a little confused. What the hell is this? Shi Kun cursed while dodging the sharp arrows fired by Su Yuan. It seems to be a very ordinary attack, and the speed is not that fast, but the power is far beyond Ishimura's expectation. In fact, Ishimura's quirks is quite powerful. Basically, he is immune to many attacks. There are even many quirks who cannot harm him without overwhelming attacks. For example, if he was not fighting Su Yuan now, he would usually not dodge attacks like the one just now, because his body is immune. However, ever since Su Yuan was able to hit his physical body, his instinct had been telling him that no matter how strong or weak the man's moves in front of him looked, either hide, or come next. As for the rain of sand just now, Ishimura looked quite weak. He thought he could easily block it. As a result, his back felt cold. Tap tap tap. Tap tap tap. Ishimura kept jumping around, dodging Su Yuan's rain of sand. Finally, a piece of green grass has now turned into a hole, with countless large and small holes. So powerful, leaving that fool unable to fight back. Is this all his strength? Bakugo Katsuki looked at Su Yuan's actions with some disbelief. At first, he thought that he was not much different from Su Yuan. As long as he worked hard, his strength would slowly surpass him. But, what now? Bakugo Katsuki is vain, he is the first in the class, what nonsense, his thinking is too simple. At this moment, Midoriya and Izuku sighed. It was not easy for him to find the class teacher of Class B, Brad King, in Class 1B. While running towards the school gate together, they bumped into a student who was about to report information. It's not good, teacher. The student breathed greedily. What happened? Are you so panicked? Bradkin asked expressionlessly. Just now when I was about to go home, I saw 2 students from our school disappearing out of thin air, and then 2 kidnapped citizens appeared. The student quickly reported everything he saw to Bradkin. 2 students. Midoriya Izuku was startled, and the figures of Su Yuan and Bakugo Katsuki appeared in his mind. What now? Bradkin asked. I was in a hurry, so I didn't go to untie them. I came to find the teacher. The student replied. Bradkin was silent for a while, and then said to Midoriya Izuku, Don't worry too much, it's okay. Your class teacher is already on his way back. Now, let's go outside and take a look. Midoriya Izuku nodded. At the school gate, when Bradkin and others arrived, Aizawa Shota had already returned. Moreover, these 3 citizens were untied and are now asking about the situation. Teacher Aizawa Shota. Midoriya Izuku shouted and quickly walked towards Aizawa Shota. Midoriya Izuku, you haven't gone home yet? Aizawa Shota asked. Midoriya Izuku did not answer his question, but said directly, Bakugo Katsuki and Kitagawa Su Yuan were arrested. What? Caught? Aizawa Shota's face suddenly darkened. Eraserhead, do you have any useful information? Bradkin asked. Villains' quirks seem to have the ability to replace people. According to what they said, they were on a grassland just now, and they were here in the blink of an eye. Aizawa Shota said in a deep voice. There are 3 citizens here, but 2 students were transferred. What is going on? Doesn't it need to be replaced one by one? Bradkin expressed his opinion. No, teacher, there was also an uncle who was transferred away. The student added. Aizawa Shota and Bradkin suddenly realized it. In this way, their guesses were proved to be correct. Midoriya Izuku, you go home first, and leave the rest to us. Aizawa Shota said in a deep voice. Although Midoriya Izuku wants to help, he knows that he can't help at the moment. If he insists on helping, he may drag Aizawa Shota and the others down. Okay, sensei, Midoriya Izuku replied. At this time, Su Yuan sighed. As the explosions continued to sound, almost the entire grassland was covered in thick smoke. Didi. At this moment, Su Yuan finally came down from the sky. Opposite him, Shikan's face was covered with sweat and his breathing was unsteady. Whatever, you can't hold it anymore. Ha 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 ha, Ishimura sneered. Su Yuan was stunned for a moment, then replied, no, I came down because I want to try another move of mine. Shikan, please don't die. Sand Waterfall Funeral. Just as Su Yuan was about to launch this move, Shikan shouted, okay, Baekwan Su Yuan, you don't have to pretend, I know. Su Yuan paused and replied in confusion, what do you know? Ha ha, Ishimura laughed, and then said self-righteously, if I guessed correctly, the move just now has already overdrawn your physical strength. Now, in order to scare me, you are talking big words here again. Indeed, I, Shikan, have to praise you for being smart. At this time, anyone who is timid will be most likely to be killed. However, for a person with rich practical experience like me, how can this little trick of yours be effective here? As soon as Shikan finished speaking, Su Yuan started to applaud and joked. Yes, yes, people with rich actual combat experience like you are also very good at creating pictures in their own minds. Don't come here and provoke me, it's useless. Ishimura sneered. Su Yuan smiled and did not refute him. At this time, his stomach had already begun to growl hungry. Even if he defeated Shikan, he still had to leave this inhospitable place before he could have anything to eat. What's more, the sky is slowly getting dark now. Anyway, although you didn't let me test myself to my limit, you can still count it as meritorious. It's just that I will never allow anyone who threatens me to survive in this world. Su Yuan said in a deep voice. At the same time, Conqueror's Haki was released directly from Su Yuan's body. However, although it cannot stun Ishimura, it still creates a strong sense of oppression for him. His whole body began to tremble involuntarily, and dense sweat gathered on his face. What's going on? Why do I suddenly feel so uncomfortable? Ishimura was a little panicked. Whoa! At this moment, Su Yuan came directly in front of him and kicked him. Ishimura immediately stretched out his arm to block it. Crack! He flew directly to the side. At this time, behind Su Yuan, the pair of wings made of sand appeared again. Puff puff! After flapping its wings several times in succession, hundreds of sharp arrows made of sand were shot directly towards Shikyun. Boom! Boom! As the explosion sounded, Su Yuan waved his hand, and a ball of sand turned into a huge hammer. He held it in his hand and flew directly in the direction of Shikan. Boom! There was another explosion. Ishimura was caught off guard and had no power to fight back. Su Yuan was superior to him in terms of speed and strength. In less than a minute, Shikan was covered in blood, sucking in the air greedily, his hands and feet trembling slightly. If it weren't for his quick reaction just now, he felt that he would have risked his life. It's a tough life, beyond my expectation. Su Yuan said coldly. Shikan frowned. Su Yuan's momentum now was completely different from before. Just with this momentum, Shikan felt that he was destined to lose. Just now you said I was faking it, now I'm going to let you know whether I'm faking it with you or not. Su Yuan said, waving his hand. Suddenly, the cloud of sand instantly trapped Ishimura. For a moment, Shikan also started to panic and said quickly, you can't kill me, you can't kill me, you can only arrest me and take me back. If you kill me, it is illegal. Illegal? When did you talk to me about this? Is it useful? Su Yuan sneered. Hearing this, Shikan knew that Su Yuan could no longer be suppressed, so he quickly begged, little brother, uncle, I was really wrong, please let me go, I will never appear in your sight in this life. Quote, I said, no one who threatens me is allowed to survive in this world. Su Yuan raised his hand slightly as he spoke. You can't kill me, you can't kill me. Look, there's someone killing people. Shangying's students have killed people. Sand waterfall funeral. A ball of sand directly covered Shikyun, and suddenly a wail sounded, and the entire grassland fell silent. Sand falls burial is a move that uses the pressure of sand to crush the villains instantly. Shikun is now in pieces. At this time, the sky had darkened. I looked around and saw that there were no lights around. Bakugo Katsuki. Su Yuan shouted. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, Bakugo Katsuki's response came not far away. This. When Su Yuan heard the sound, he fluttered his sand wings and flew over. Do you know where this place is? Su Yuan asked Bakugo Katsuki. Bakugo Katsuki shook his head and replied, I don't know. There is something I want to ask you. Huh, you said. Su Yuan responded. Is it because of your guidance that Juju made such great progress before he entered school? Bakugo Katsuki said calmly. Su Yuan smiled. No. It's more about his hard work. I only occasionally compete with him. Midoriya Izuku is always different from Bakugo Katsuki. In the original work, he is the protagonist, the one who has the halo of the protagonist. Not only did he get the powerful quirks 1F Wang De Hao, or All from All Might, but he also received personal guidance from All Might. As for Bakugo Katsuki, he has to rely on himself for everything. I have a request. Bakugo Katsuki finally said these unspeakable words after a long time. What? I want to become as strong as you. Next time I don't want to be as embarrassed as today. I want you to guide me. Bakugo Katsuki said in a deep voice. When Su Yuan heard this, he said without hesitation, No, this kind of thing is the teacher's task. If you want guidance, you have to find a teacher, the #1 profession hero s All Might. What a joke. Su Yuan doesn't have enough time for himself now, so he doesn't have time to guide others. Even if I have time, I can't sleep well or something, so I need to get some guidance. Bakugo Katsuki gritted his teeth. Please. Judging from his appearance, in order to become stronger, he no longer cares about face. All Might is our hero's basic teacher. His combat experience and strength are superior to mine. And what about me? I have little combat experience and my strength is just average. Relatively speaking, he can guide you better. Su Wuxin said calmly. All Might is a professional hero. He is very busy every day. Moreover, you are his apprentice, so he doesn't have enough time at all. Bakugo Katsuki said in a deep voice. I'm not All Might's apprentice. The reason why I say that is because it was a special situation last time. Su Yuan explained. Bakugo Katsuki. Okay, let's not talk about this for now. The most important thing at the moment is to leave this place where birds don't shit, not to mention I am very hungry now. Listening to Su Yuan's words, Bakugo Katsuki's request had to be put aside for the time being. However, Shangying was really no pushover. Relying on the clue of a piece of grassland, he was able to locate the grassland where Su Yuan and the others were located in less than 2 hours. Soon, Su Yuan met Aizawa Shota and the others. Are you two okay? Aizawa Shota asked worriedly. Well, I'm fine. Bakugo Katsuki's hand just bled a little. Su Yuan answered truthfully. Villains, were defeated by you? Aizawa Shota asked again. Just when Bakugo Katsuki was about to speak, Su Yuan answered first. We just had a fight in the front, and we took advantage of an opportunity to hide behind. Yeah, Bakugo Katsuki also nodded. Aizawa Shota nodded. Well done. Your strength is too weak. If you forcefully fight the villains, you will easily lose your life. Too weak. Bakugo Katsuki paused and saw Su Yuan from the corner of his eye. Indeed, if what happened today was not something he saw with his own eyes. There is nothing wrong with what Aizawa Shota said, but fortunately, he is here today. If Su Yuan's strength is called too weak, then how should he call his own strength? Extremely weak, or just a piece of shit. Okay, come back with me and explain in detail what happened today. As for the rest of the matter, just leave it to the office and the police. Su Yuan nodded to Bakugo Katsuki. After returning, Su Yuan told the whole story. Of course, it was partly true and partly fictitious. For example, Ishimura was killed by himself. Su Yuan did not say this, but Bakugo Katsuki nodded online throughout the whole process. It wasn't until after 10 o'clock that Su Yuan returned home. When he returned, he found a note on the table, pressed down with something. Su Yuan walked over and picked it up. The note read, "Su Yuan, there is something urgent at the office today. Make dinner by yourself or go out to eat. Also, my parents will not be back tonight. Sorry." Looking at the note, Su Yuan's heart did not waver at all, because such a thing was too common. At the same time, inside the dark bar, there was appalling laughter. "Teacher, are you telling the truth?" Tamura Shigaraki looked at the mysterious man on the screen and smiled. That guy from All Might actually went to work as a teacher in Shanggying. It's really ridiculous." The mysterious man on the screen also laughed. Right. While saying this, the mysterious man on the screen seemed to remember something again and continued. "I also found out about the person who stirred up trouble in Shanggying. His name is Ishimura. He is a wanted criminal. After attacking the office a year ago, he was inactive for a year. He only reappeared today. The first meaningful thing he did when he reappeared was to kidnap 2 students, one named Kitagawa Su Yuan and the other named Bakugo Katsuki. Baikuan Su Yuan, I'm sure you are familiar with it, as All Might's apprentice. As for Bakugo Katsuki, I found out that it was because he almost killed that guy Ishimura a year ago." Tamura Shigaraki was slightly startled. "I almost killed Ishimura. That guy named Bakugo Katsuki is so powerful. Teacher, what is his identity? I have also investigated him. There is no special information about the new students in Hero Class 1A. However, I heard that Ishimura is quite capable. The fact that Bakugo Katsuki could almost kill Ishimura proves that he is quite capable." The mysterious man on the screen reasoned. "Teacher, do we need to take any action?" Tamura Shigaraki asked. After the words fell, there was silence for a few seconds. "No rush, just wait for my news." "I understand," Tamura Shigaraki replied. The news that the wanted criminal Go Shanggying kidnapped the students spread on the internet almost overnight. It was still dark, and at least hundreds of reporters were standing at the gate of Shanggying School. If a heroic teacher comes later, you must run faster and try to get the headlines. The female reporter holding the microphone said to the man carrying the camera. "Just be patient," the man replied. "But, then again, isn't Shangnya said to be the school with the best defense? It actually allowed wanted criminals to come to the school to kidnap students. The best defense means that it's just a matter of words." The female reporter was slightly disappointed. On the internet, it is said that the wanted persons kidnapped are All Might's apprentice Su Yuan Kitagawa and Bakugo Katsuki from the sledge incident. If we can find out anything useful, wow, that would be really exciting. The photographer held the camera with a strange smile on his face. However, it is true that these things have nothing to do with them at all. They still wish that things would get bigger and a few people would die without incident. Otherwise, where would they go to get things to report? As time passes by, at this time, there were already students and teachers slowly walking towards Shanggying. Undoubtedly, whenever they saw a student, more than 100 reporters rushed to interview him like hungry wolves. Some students were so frightened that they turned around and ran away. Soon after, a group of reporters turned their attention to Aizawa Shota, who was walking towards the gate of UA school. There is no doubt that a group of reporters pounced on him in the next second. "Hello, I would like to ask, is the thing that was circulated on the internet late last night true?" 10 female reporters pushed the microphone to Shota Seisei's mouth and asked. Aizawa Shota was silent for a second, pretending not to know and said, "What is going on the internet?" "It's about All Might's apprentice, Bakugo Katsuki from the sledge incident, who was kidnapped by wanted criminals at the school gate." The reporter explained to Aizawa Shota. Hearing this, Aizawa Shota frowned and continued to pretend, "I don't know." "Then when did All Might come to work at Shanggying?" the reporter asked, changing the topic. "I don't know either. You can ask him personally. However, he is not at work today. You can come another day. Go back now and don't disturb other people's classes," Aizawa Shota said calmly. Then he hurried away. He didn't want to be asked more questions, he couldn't bear it. Soon, other students began to arrive one after another. The reporters quickly started taking action again. After half an hour, they didn't get any breaking news. Hello, classmate, may I ask, do you know about the kidnapping incident that was circulated on the internet yesterday? One of the reporters asked the newly arrived Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya Izuku paused. I'm sorry, I still have something very important to do. The next moment, he quickly walked into Shongying. The reporter had no choice but to ask other people. Hello, classmate, excuse me for a minute. Can you find the time when the wanted criminals kidnapped the heroic students that were circulated on the internet last night? The reporter asked Uraraka Ochako. Well, I understand, but I don't know much about this matter. Uraraka Ochako was honest and told everything he knew. The reporters saw that they could dig out other breaking news, so they continued to ask, I heard that All Might became Jae-hung's master very early, right? Uraraka Ochako nodded slightly, probably so. I heard that among the freshmen in this class, there is a student who is All Might's apprentice. During training, will All Might favor his apprentice? The reporter asked. Nope. Just when the reporter was about to continue asking questions, a loud voice suddenly sounded behind them. Yuan Kitagawa and Bakugo Katsuki from the Silt incident are here. With the sound of this sound, the reporters were as if they had been given a shot of blood. In just a short moment, they all surrounded Bakugo Katsuki and Yuan. Hello, I am a reporter from Yomiuri TV. There is a rumor on the internet that you were kidnapped by a wanted criminal yesterday afternoon. Is it true? Dozens of microphones were directly in front of Yuan's mouth. Yuan's face was slightly stiff. Yes. The reporters holding the microphone suddenly turned dark when they heard this. Just say a few words. For example, when did you become All Might's apprentice? Guess. Yuan continued. The reporters' brows furrowed. However, Yuan sometimes really hates these reporters. Sometimes, they take a photo and write all the content. Please, don't disturb my normal class, Wu said in a deep voice. The reporter had no choice but to make way for Yuan. Class 1A classroom. You all know more or less what was circulated on the internet last night. Aizawa Shota asked from the podium. Teacher Aizawa Shota, is the information on the internet true? Yaoyorozu Momo raised his hand and asked. Yes, it was the wanted criminal who was so bold that he broke into Shangli and kidnapped students. Iida added. It's not an intruder, but one of the villains has a kind of quirks called replacement, which instantly transported Bakugo Katsuki and Kitagawa Yuan to other places. However, fortunately, Kitagawa Yuan and Bakugo Katsuki escaped the villain's pursuit and successfully waited for our rescue. Aizawa Shota explained. So, what was circulated last night is true. No wonder so many reporters were standing outside this morning. Momo said, casting his peripheral vision on Yuan. Ask a question. Iida raised his hand and said. Say. Aizawa Shota replied. If such a big thing happened to Yuying, why did it spread on the internet? Iida asked. After hearing this, Aizawa Shota's face changed obviously. Let's not talk about this issue for now. Next, let's get to the main topic of today's class meeting. Aizawa Shota said calmly. Main topic. Everyone was stunned for a moment, thinking that Aizawa Shota was going to say something meaningful, and there was a look of anticipation on their faces. Aizawa Shota saw their appearance and said speechlessly, looking at you, you are looking forward to what I am going to say next, but you may be disappointed. What I'm going to talk about next has nothing to do with All Might and the kidnapping of students by wanted criminals. Rather, decide on the candidates for the school-level committee members. As soon as Aizawa Shota finished speaking, the whole class became excited. They all raised their hands and shouted loudly, I want to be the squad leader, let me do it, I can do it. I want to be one too. Me too, this position was simply created for me. I also want to be a leader. Of course, if the position of monitor is placed in an ordinary school, the monitor would be almost a handyman, not of much use, and not many people would want to be the monitor. However, in the Hero S department, this is a position of leading everyone, it can be said that it is the commander on the battlefield. Seeing everyone in the class raise their hands, Yuan felt more relieved. Yuan is not interested in the position of squad leader because he knows that it is definitely a tiring job. If you raise your hand, you have an 1/18th chance of being selected, but if you don't raise your hand, it would be too obvious. For those who were afraid of trouble, Aizawa Shota may directly hit himself. Therefore, Su Yuan, who has rich experience, also raised his hand and shouted, I also want to be the monitor. Su Yuan shouted to play, and suddenly a loud voice rang out. Quiet. The position of squad leader is an important job that leads everyone to take responsibility. It can't be done just by being equal. I personally think that for this position, you need to be strong in our class, not reckless in doing things, make us feel trustworthy, and have considerable majesty. Ida said slowly. Everyone was stunned. Thinking about it, it seems that this is really the case. If you don't meet these conditions, it will be difficult to be a good monitor. Su Yuan was sitting with his hands on the table and his head on his head watching the show. I have a very good candidate, Su Yuan from Kitagawa, who ranked first in the entrance test. Iida pointed at Su Yuan who was watching a play. Su Yuan was stunned for a moment and almost hit his head on the table. Perhaps in their eyes, this is a position that requires very good people to hold. If you can take it, your face will be bright. However, in Su Yuan's eyes, this is just a trap. Not to mention wasting time, there is no good return. Look at you, are you speaking in human language? I don't have any of the conditions you mentioned. Su Yuan retorted. When Iida heard this, his expression changed. Looking at him, he seemed to know that Su Yuan was scolding him. Let's take a look. This is probably one of the best talents in 100. Baekwon Su Yuan is not only excellent, but also very humble. Let me ask, if such a person is not the monitor, then who is qualified to be the monitor? What Tien Ida said makes sense. After hearing this, everyone became silent. What the hell? Su Yuan's expression was very rich, just when Su Yuan was about to refute the above. Midoriya Izuku stood up. I agree with Su Yuan being the monitor. What the hell are you doing? Su Yuan swore angrily. What's even more incredible is that Bakugo Katsuki also stood up. Although I feel unwilling to do so, I agree with what he said. He is indeed more qualified than me to be the monitor. I agree. If it's Baekwon Su Yuan, I don't have any objection. Me too, not to mention how dark Su Yuan's face is now. If Ida, Bakugo Katsuki, and Midoriya Izuku were outside now, these three would definitely be beaten up. What do you think, teacher? Iida asked. Aizawa Shota was silent for a few seconds, then cast his eyes on Su Yuan and said, What do you think? Teacher, I am really not qualified for this position. You should find someone else. Su Yuan replied. If you can't do it, then who else can do it? Ida said. Su Yuan frowned. It seemed that this guy had no sense of existence unless he dragged himself into the water. Except for you, the whole class has agreed to let you be the monitor. Just give it a try for a while. Aizawa Shota said calmly. Without even giving Su Yuan a chance to refute, he continued to count, then who will be the deputy squad leader? As soon as these words were said, the whole class became as restless as before, raising their hands one after another to recommend themselves. In the end, Aizawa Shota let them decide on this lesson, and then he lay down in his sleeping bag and slept. As time passed by, Ida finally won the position of deputy squad leader with 2 votes. Of course, one of the votes was cast by Su Yuan. Come on, hurt each other. Noon, inside the principal's office. Last night, the kidnapping of Shongying students by wanted criminals was suddenly posted on the internet. I asked someone to investigate later. He was very cautious in what he did. All the information he left behind was false information. I suspect it was sent by a teacher in our school. The principal sat on the chair and said to All Might, who was leaning against the window. All Might frowned and looked outside quietly, his deep pupils making it impossible to guess. It's too dangerous. But, in the final analysis, it's hard for Shongying to solve this problem. All Might turned around and sat on the sofa nearby. Yes, this is clearly aimed at our heroes, the principal replied. By the way, have you checked the place where Boy Bibi was found last night? All Might asked. Well, after checking everything, it seems that a fierce battle took place somewhere. There are traces of fighting everywhere, and a large part of the grass has turned into sand. Sand. When the word, Sha, is mentioned, All Might will always think of Su Yuan subconsciously. Yes, in addition to sand, we also found a large amount of transparent liquid. The principal said calmly. During the inspection, did you find Ishimura? All Might asked. The principal shook his head. No, he probably couldn't find Baekwon Su-yuan and they left at that time. It's making people angry, All Might said coldly. Okay, let's put this matter aside for now. However, All Might, I thought the successor you chose was Kitagawa Su-yuan. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be the kid named Midoriya Izuku. The principal said calmly. All Might raised his head slightly and cast his almost dim gaze on the principal. Although Midoriya Izuku is my heir, from the bottom of my heart, I already miss Kitagawa boy as my apprentice. However, this is just my unilateral thought. That kid, he's different from everyone else. His talent is so powerful, and with this terrifying quirks, he's going to become a symbol of peace that scares villains. Why don't you become the demon god who destroys the world? After listening to All Might's words, the principal was silent for a few seconds. Su-yuan's growth rate was unimaginable. So, this child must get the right guidance. The principal added. Do you have any good ideas? All Might asked. Yes. You say, the third-year Big Three at the top of Shangyeong Reign is known as the Big Three of Shangyeong. I think he can become the fourth member of Big Three. The principal said slowly. All Might was startled, then smiled and said, if you join, it will still be a Big Three instead of a Big Four. But having said that, this is indeed a good idea. Moreover, he can learn a lot from these seniors. Aha, the principal also fully agreed with All Might's words. Then, let Baekwon Su-yuan be included as a special member of the three heroes. For meaningless courses, let him study with the three heroes. The principal said softly. Wait, I have a better idea. Let's get the powerful quirks from Class 1A to form a team. Then, when Big Three is free, you can come over and guide them. All Might said slowly. You mean to let them become the next representatives of heroes? The principal asked. All Might nodded. That's right. Then how do you think Class 1A should be organized? The principal continued to ask. I have read all the information about them, and I think these people can be combined. The crushing strength is Kitagawa boy, my successor Midoriya boy, explosive quirks, Bakugo boy, and Endeavor's son, Shoto Todoroki, and a Tokiyami boy whose performance is not very obvious. All Might calmly said. The principal thought for a while and replied, but let's wait for the UJ training at the end of the day and arrange it first. The so-called USJ is the special teaching facility of Hero High School. It is a training ground specially built by Space Hero S number 13 to conduct rescue training for students. The full name is Utopian Shogai Jikoba, or USJ for short. It's a bit far from the school building and you need to take a bus to get there. There are a total of 6 training grounds including Heavy Storm Site, Flood Disaster Site, Fire Site, Mountain Site, Soil and Sand Site, and Collapse Site, where you can experience various disasters. Okay, All Might said, got up and walked towards the door. At this moment, the principal also stood up and gave instructions. By the way, All Might, there are a lot of reporters outside, so you have to take it easy. Quote. Don't worry, All Might said without looking back. Since he handed one for all to Midoriya Izuku, his power has been continuously weakening, and his transformation time has also become shorter. He knew that there was not much time left for him, and many things needed to be done. At this moment, Class 1A. Su-yuan looked at Iida's happy expression, and he seemed to know that Iida seemed to be very willing to take on the position of deputy squad leader. Kitagawa-kun, thank you very much for thinking so highly of me. I will not let you down in this position of deputy squad leader, Li Zhao's. Iida walked to Su-yuan's side and said sincerely. Seeing Iida like this, Nishimoto's face was a little stiff. It's okay, as long as you like it. Soon, it was time for the afternoon Hero S Basics course. All Might walked into the classroom with Aizawa Shota. Today's Basic Hero S course is a bit special. It requires me, teacher Aizawa Shota, and another teacher to jointly supervise it. All Might stood on the podium and said. Everyone was startled and slightly confused. Because, in the past, only one person was needed to learn the basics of Hero S. But today there are 3. Is it a special situation? Or is it for some other reason? They don't know. Although they had doubts in their hearts, none of them raised them. After all, the school had its own reasons for the arrangement. Wow. At this moment, one of the students raised his hand and asked, "Excuse me, what is the content of this time?" Today's hero's basics are about rescue training in the event of natural disasters, floods and other accidents. All Might said with a serious tone. Rescue. I feel so choked this time. Kaminari Denki muttered. You idiot, rescue is Hero's job. I can't wait. Hiroshima Eijiro said with some excitement. If it's a flood, it will be my own stage. Asui Suyu said excitedly. Aizawa Shota rolled his eyes at them on the podium, and then forcibly interjected, Hey! Don't waste time here. I feel like changing into combat uniforms. The training ground is a little far from here. Square root the meeting bus is across the floor. You're right, start getting ready. All Might added on the side. At this moment, among the 18 people, only Su Yuan looked solemn. Although it has been a year since he traveled to this world, he can no longer remember many of the possibly unimportant plots of My Hero Academia. However, as for this USJ training and the First League of Villains event, he still has an impression. He also remembered that All Might did not attend USJ training because of something. It wasn't until the villains appeared later that he rushed over in a hurry. As for what happened, he really couldn't remember clearly. However, one thing Su Yuan can be sure of is that the butterfly effect caused by his appearance is slowly expanding. Therefore, at this moment, he did not know whether League of Villains would appear on the USJ training ground as shown in the original book. What's wrong with you? It looks like something happened to you. Yaoyorozu Momo looked at Su Yuan suspiciously. He has known Su Yuan for a while, and this was the first time he saw Su Yuan like this. Su Yuan came back to his senses, glanced at Yaoyorozu Momo, and smiled. Nothing, I remembered something. Oh, Yaoyorozu Momo nodded without asking any more questions, then took his battle uniform and gave Su Yuan another instruction. By the way, the teacher asked us to prepare quickly and gather together. Yeah, I just know. With that said, Su Yuan also stood up. Although he did not have a customized combat uniform, he still put on his sportswear and went to the USJ training ground. On the bus, Su Yuan sat in the back and looked at the scenery outside quietly. In fact, he didn't care too much about League of Villains' attack on USJ. First, although his strength is not abnormally strong now, he still needs some skills to hurt himself. Second, this time it is not the same as the original work, All Might is not present. So he has nothing to worry about at all. Instead, it's League of Villains. If you come, you have to take it easy and don't get wiped out by the group. Ha, you kid, say it again. Believe it or not, I will kill you. Bakugo Katsuki was in the car, and for some reason, his old temper started to explode. However, the result is that the people on the bus started to finish off the damage with each other's words. Bakugo Katsuki has been said to be autistic. He is sitting on the seat with a pale face. Okay, we're almost there, please stop for a while. Aizawa Shota said in a deep voice. After about a few minutes, the bus slowly stopped and everyone began to get off. In front of the gate of USJ's training ground, Teacher Hero, Space Hero S number 13, has been waiting for a long time. Classmates, I've been waiting for you for a long time. It's Space Hero S number 13, a professional hero S who performed extremely well at the disaster rescue scene. Wow, it's so cool. Midoriya Izuku's eyes lit up. Wow, I like what number 13 said. Uraraka Ochako also started to get excited. Then, under the leadership of number 13, they walked to the USJ training ground. USJ covers a large area. When Su Yuan watched it on TV, he felt nothing. But once I experienced it myself, it was still a bit shocking. Moreover, although it is said to be a simulation, the natural disasters in it are all real. So awesome. Is this USJ? So big. It's so shocking. Although I saw the introduction in the book, I didn't expect it to be so shocking in reality. Okay, everyone is already here, let's get started, don't waste time. Aizawa Shota said from the side. Number 13 nodded, and then said to everyone, before we start, I want to remind you of a few points. As you all know, my quirks are black holes that can suck in and crush anything. Every quirk has a good side and a bad side. Just like mine, it can save people easily, but it can also kill people easily. I think some of my classmates have quirks like this too. Our superhuman society, at first glance, is built by strictly controlling the use of quirks through a qualification system. However, one wrong move can easily kill someone, and we all have such radical quirks, please keep this in mind. Yes, everyone nodded, and their peripheral vision was cast on Su Yuan and Bakugo Katsuki, seeming to tell them. Did you hear that? You two need to be extremely careful not to kill someone by mistake. In addition, I think that through Mr. Aizawa's physical fitness test, everyone already knows the possibilities contained in their own power. Through All Might's anti-person combat training, they have also truly experienced how dangerous their own power can be when dealing with others. So, in this class, I want you to change your mood and learn how to use your quirks to save others. That's all, thank you for listening. Number 13 said. That's great, that's great. Everyone shouted, and suddenly at this moment, the equipment in USJ suddenly malfunctioned. The sound of zzz sounded continuously. Immediately afterwards, the lights in the venue dimmed one after another. The fountain at the USJ training ground sprayed intermittently, but it soon recovered. But, that is at this moment. In front of the fountain, suddenly a purple vortex was slowly expanding. In the blink of an eye, the purple vortex expanded like a demon. The golden eyes are very obvious on the purple object. As this group of purple objects continued to expand, suddenly, at this moment, a pale hand stretched out directly. Immediately afterwards, a man whose body was held by many hands slowly walked out. When Aizawa Shota in the distance saw this scene, he frowned and shouted loudly. Don't move. Everyone looked at the sudden appearance of this purple object in the distance with some confusion. Then, what is that? Kirishima Eijiro said with a confused look. Suddenly, a lot of people appeared. Uraraka Ochako continued. These people look a bit scary. Midoriya Izuku muttered. Are these, just like the entrance exam, where you just start without being reminded? Kirishima Eijiro continued. Work. As soon as he finished speaking, All Might, who had been silent since just now, finally spoke. These daughter villains. When everyone heard this, almost everyone felt a little unbelievable. Why are there villains in USJ's training ground? Yaoyorozu Momo said in a deep voice. No way, villains, Kirishima Eijiro said with a stiff expression. The expressions of the others were not much better, and all of them had solemn expressions. It seems, just like in the original work, people from the League of Villains appear for the first time. Su Yuan watched the villain slowly running out of Kurogiri's portal and thought to himself. Aizawa-kun, take all the students and retreat on the 13th. Leave the people here to me. All Might said in a deep voice. Aizawa Shota nodded immediately and gave instructions to All Might while running in the direction of the students. Be careful yourself. Just leave it to Aizawa-kun to evacuate the students. I'll stay and help, number 13 said. Okay, All Might replied, and then said to the running Aizawa Shota, you can take the students away as much as you want, and leave the rest to me. While speaking, he directly pulled off his tie. And at this moment, a large group of villains walked out of Heiji's portal. According to the teacher's course schedule one got a few days ago, All Might is indeed here. Kurogiri said calmly. Isn't this great? It's very satisfying. It's not in vain that I brought so many guys to come all the way. Tamura Shigaraki said in a deep voice. Then, what to do with the group of students who escaped? Kurogiri asked. They're all here. Of course we can't let them idle. The communication equipment here has been cut off by us. Anyone who appears at the USJ training ground now, we can't let them out. Otherwise, Ying-Ying's support will arrive quickly. Tamura Shigaraki analyzed. Okay, got it, Kurogiri replied. For All Might's strength, Tamura Shigaraki still knows more or less, so for this operation, he specially brought a Nomu. This Nomu possesses multiple quirks, shock absorption, and super regeneration. He looks like a giant dinosaur-like man with an exposed brain. This is a man modified by the League of Villains in order to cope with All Might's abilities. It can completely absorb All Might's powerful impact and has super regeneration ability. Pure physical strength is on par with All Might. Go back, Aizawa Shota shouted. Upon hearing this, everyone turned around quickly and ran towards the door. Not long after they ran, a purple vortex appeared again in front of them. Then, he suddenly became angry and turned into a living being. This is the first time we meet. We're League of Villains. Please forgive me for being rude. This time we came to visit the heroic base camp to completely kill All Might, the symbol of peace. Kurogiri said calmly. When everyone heard this, their faces became very stiff. Are you kidding? All Might is the #1 professional hero. You can kill anyone you want. Bakugo Katsuki was the first to retort. Haha, really? Kurogiri sneered and did not refute him. After all, who would care about what a child said? Don't act rashly, let me do it. At this time, Aizawa Shota jumped up and came to the front of the students. Do you think I would come here without thinking about this issue? After Kurogiri said this, a purple mist suddenly began to expand on him. Immediately afterwards, dozens of strange-looking people came out. Help me hold him for a minute. I will disperse these students immediately and kill them one by one. Kurogiri said towards the group of people. Mr. Kurogiri, what you said is too much. One of the men said. That's right, are you looking down on us? Don't we only deserve to hold him for a minute and don't have the ability to kill him? You misunderstood me. What I meant was that I only need 1 minute to disperse this group of students. Kurogiri defended. The group of people were not talking, but rushed towards Aizawa Shota. Go back. I'm not here, follow the squad leader's instructions. Sue, you are the strongest here, I leave it to you. Aizawa said in a low voice and started fighting the villains. Su Yuan and the others started running back. Originally, Aizawa Shota wanted to stop Black Garden. But what I didn't expect was that Kurogiri slipped away in the blink of an eye. Aizawa Shota yelled. Less than 30 seconds into the run, Kurogiri appeared in front again. What should I do about Su Yuan? Iida asked. If you can't run away, kill him. Su Yuan said in a deep voice. Chapter 61. When everyone heard this, their expressions suddenly became richer. Kill him. You are definitely not joking. Ida suddenly said to Su Yuan with a stiff face. Yes, this is a villain's. This is not training, people will die. Minoru Mineta was now so scared that his whole body was shaking. That's right, Monitor, is there any other way? Another student also asked. Su Yuan replied with a gloomy expression, yes, of course. Any solution. That's waiting to die, but I don't want to wait to die, so if you want to live, just follow me, and I will try my best to let you survive. As for those who are waiting to die, I'm sorry, you are not qualified for my protection. Su Yuan shouted. Everyone fell silent immediately. You're right, I've wanted to kill them for a long time. Bakugo Katsuki clenched his fists tightly and sneered. Count me in, this looks pretty hot-blooded. Hiroshima Eijiro said, activating his quirks on his hand, and it hardened with a swish sound. I don't want to sit still and wait for death. Shoto Todoroki also said. Me too, I don't want to die yet, I want to live. In just a few tens of seconds, Su lost his fighting spirit to survive in Class 1A. Even Kurogiri in front of him was a little shocked. In such a short period of time, he had unified his fighting spirit. Su Yuan slowly raised his right hand, then pointed at him and shouted, then, in the name of the squad leader. I will kill him. Ah! Everyone also shouted loudly to increase their ambition. A group of people launched their own quirks and launched an attack on Kurogiri. I came just in time to disperse you. After Kurogiri said that, the purple objects all over his body began to grow in size. He was preparing to cover the charging students and then teleport them to another place. However, at this moment, the sand that was faster than Kurogiri suddenly closed up the charging students. Immediately afterwards, the huge purple object shrouded it. Whoa! At this moment, behind Su Yuan, a pair of sand wings suddenly appeared, following him with a lifelong leap and flying rapidly in the direction of Kurogiri. Wings. Jiro Kyoka was a little confused. He never thought that Su Yuan's quirks could be played like this. It's so cool, Izuku said as he looked at Su Yuan's back. Although it is indeed a bit cool, but it seems, now is not the time to talk about this. Yaoyorozu Momo said speechlessly. Su Yuan has a general understanding of Kurogiri's quirks. His specific ability is to teleport objects or creatures. It was not suitable for close combat, so Su Yuan did not attack him recklessly. But the ability to cleverly utilize the sha fruit. Sand rain. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, sharp arrows made of sand were fired from his pair of sand wings. Boo-hoo. A continuous stream of sand arrows was shot towards Kurogiri. Kurogiri was stunned for a moment, and quickly used his quirks to move Hao to another place. Boom, boom. First, there was a violent explosion in the distance. Then Kurogiri was knocked away. Oh, it seems I remembered correctly, the body wrapped in the longevity body is your entity. Su said as Heishu walked and was knocked away. Kurogiri frowned, looked at Su Yuan in the sky and said in a deep voice, "You are the calmest among the crowd, and you are the one who restores their fighting spirit. If I guess correctly, you are All Might's apprentice, Baikuan Su Yuan." Su Yuan sneered. "Oh, it seems that my reputation is not small, you all know me. How could we not get to know All Might's apprentice? This time we are here mainly to bring you and All Might a surprise." Kurogiri said calmly. "That's it, then I have to thank you properly," Su Yuan said, suddenly flapping his wings and reappearing Kurogiri as fast as possible. Before Kurogiri could react, with a bang, his whole head was pressed to the ground by Su Yuan. Suddenly, a strong air current arose around him. "How about it, do you like this gift of mine?" Su Yuan said calmly. "This guy has such terrifying speed," Kurogiri thought to himself. "Next, I'm going to blow your head off." Su Yuan raised his hand, armed color hockey covered his fist. DRBU. With a punch, Su Yuan punched Kurogiri directly on the head. The ground was shaken with spider web-shaped cracks, and the armor Kurogiri was wearing was shattered. "Okay, the quality of your head." Su Yuan looked at Kurogiri with a hint of meaning. He thought he could blow his head off with one punch. If one punch doesn't work, then let's take another punch. After Su Yuan said this, he raised his hand again, and armament hockey once again covered his fist. As soon as he heard Su Yuan's words, Kurogiri, who was already gradually entering a coma, suddenly became desperate to survive. A purple mist directly enveloped Su Yuan, but soon, the mist disappeared. Of course, Su Yuan didn't know where he was at this moment. It was so dangerous. I almost died at the hands of that guy. I have to report this to Tamura Shigaraki as soon as possible, Kurogiri said as he stood up staggeringly. At this time, Su Wei had been teleported to the Beisha disaster simulation area at the U.S. training ground. "I was careless. He teleported me here." Su Yuan patted his forehead speechlessly. At this time, a voice came from behind Su Yuan. "Hey, do we only have one opponent? Our key looks so weak." "Yeah, it's really unlucky. Let's solve it quickly and let's go somewhere else to play. It's really disappointing, so someone was sent to me. I want to know. In this earthy and sandy area, I can line up 100 people." Su Yuan heard the sound, and a group of people who were neither humans nor ghosts appeared in sight. 1 vs 100 in soil and sand areas? Su Yuan asked. "Disappointment, I'll leave this to you, we'll go somewhere else." As he said this, almost everyone in the group turned around. Okay, the man said listlessly. "What a coincidence. It seems that your quirks are also related to sand, and so are mine. Let's bang bang." A weird smile appeared on Su Yuan's face. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, the man cast a contemptuous look at him, but the next second, the man paused. Because, he seems to have seen this face somewhere, and the most terrible thing is that he can't remember it now. After sizing up Su Yuan, the man said without interest. "You. Boy, forget it, although I have no enmity with you, but Mr. Tamura Shigaraki gave the order, so I can't keep you. However, uncle, I have no interest in people who are too weak. Otherwise, you can commit suicide yourself." Suicide? Su Yuan was a little confused. This was not the first time he encountered a villain who asked him to commit suicide. "But I want to live," Su Yuan replied. "That's not okay. Children must listen to adults and commit suicide obediently. Otherwise, if I take action, it will be very cruel," the man retorted. Su Yuan's face was a little stiff and she didn't reply to his words because she couldn't answer his words. The next moment, he waved his right hand. A bunch of sand spurs suddenly rose up and stabbed towards the man. Seeing the sudden rise of sand spurs, the man's pupils shrank violently, and he quickly jumped up to dodge. Finally, he landed on the tail of the sand spur. Okay, little brother, why don't you scare me? The man wiped the sweat on his forehead, then something suddenly sounded and he continued. Oh, look at my memory, it's really bad. I forgot that the people we want to kill this time are students from the Hero's department. Of course there are some very powerful ones. Su Yuan smiled. We all play in the sand, how about competing? Su Yuan's eyes met the man's. The relaxed look on the man's face gradually disappeared. Shut up. Do you think someone like you is qualified to compete with me? Perhaps among Shangying's students, you are considered a capable person. But you know who you are in my eyes. A piece of shit. Oh no, a piece of shit is exalting you. As soon as the man finished speaking, a black shadow flashed in front of him, and the next second, his head was directly beaten into the sand by Su Yuan. Tell me again, who do you think I am? Su Yuan said expressionlessly. The man kept struggling, trying to pull his head out of the sand. Drew. At this moment, Su Yuan grabbed the man's annoyance and raised it, and continued, now, I let you live so that you can live. I let you die. No one can save you. Don't do anything in front of me. Before he finished speaking the word, smart, the man suddenly smiled and saw the soil and sand on the ground suddenly flying up. It condensed on his hand and immediately formed a sharp thorn, which was stabbed towards Su Yuan's head. It may seem like a long process, but in reality, it doesn't even take a second from start to finish. What are you talking about again? Say it again. At the same time as the words were spoken, the spikes directly penetrated Su Yuan's head. However, the next moment, the man's face became a little stiff, because the development of the matter was in accordance with the development he knew. Where the spikes penetrated, there was no blood or brain matter flowing out, but it was as if the sand had been scattered. Obviously, this is elementalization by Su Yuan. I said, don't be smart in front of me. Su Yuan said, covering armament hockey on his left hand. He punched the man and sent him flying. The man rolled heavily in the sand several times, creating a thick cloud of smoke. The smoke quickly rushed towards Su Yuan, and at this moment, a voice came out directly from the smoke. PFF'd. Su Yuan's hand had turned into a killing knife and penetrated directly through the man's abdomen. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, his pupils shrank violently again. I remembered, you are Ortate's apprentice. Baikuan Sigwang, the man said with difficulty. Pipe. So what if I think about it, if I don't let you survive today, you won't be able to survive today. Su Yuan said solemnly, directly pulling out the sand knife and returning to its original appearance. Go on and find Kurogiri. That Kurogiri took advantage of my carelessness and teleported me to another place. Su Yuan muttered. A pair of sand wings suddenly appeared behind him. With the flapping of the wings, Su Yuan disappeared into the soil and sand disaster simulation area in the blink of an eye. After Su Yuan was transferred, Kurogiri did not dare to breathe, but directly dispersed the other people in Class 1A. At this moment, Kurogiri suddenly appeared in front of Tamura Shigaraki. Tamura Shigaraki, all students have been transferred, the gate of USJ is guarded, and all communication equipment has been blocked. They are already in trouble. However, in addition to All Might, I also encountered a more difficult opponent. In the fight just now, if he hadn't been careless, I was almost killed. Kurogiri couldn't help but tremble when he thought of what just happened. The person you are talking about is the follower of All Might. Tamura Shigaraki said in a deep voice. Yes, it is the student named Baikuan Su Yuan. Kurogiri said in a deep voice. They are already a turtle in a urn, so what is there to worry about? All Might can no longer hold on any longer. It seems that as rumored, his Denuo's strength is weakened, ha ha ha. Tamura Shigaraki's the laughter is so weird that it gives people goosebumps. Right, suddenly Tamura Shigaraki remembered something and continued to ask. What gone? On the 13th, how is the situation there with the other teacher? Tamura Shigaraki asked. For now, the situation is relatively stable. Although the people we are looking for are not as strong as them. But we have so many people that we can even exhaust their physical strength. Kurogiri explained the current situation. At this moment, All Might, who was fighting hard with Nomu, looked very stiff. Because the time for his transformation is coming soon, and he will return to his thin appearance before he can hold on for long. All Might cursed. Nomu's strength far exceeded his expectations. It can also be said that this Nomu is completely incompatible with All Might. At first, All Might thought that Nomu's quirks only had impact absorption, but later discovered that he not only had impact absorption, but even had the ability to super regenerate. What super regeneration means roughly is that no matter how seriously injured his body is, or even if his hands or feet are broken, he can grow back quickly. If the basic strength is very different, then there won't be much of a problem. But the problem is that the basic strength of this Nomu is similar to All Might's. Same base power, has shock absorption, and super regenerative quirks, plus its own quirks and forals decline. What's even more fatal is that the time for him to transform is coming soon. All kinds of things that are not good for All Might have happened to him. It will undoubtedly be difficult to defeat Nomu this time. Ha ha ha, it's Nomu who the teacher specially researched to deal with All Might. Seeing the helpless look on his face, I don't know why. I felt much more comfortable. Tamura Shigaraki shouted excitedly towards All Might. Dead handle wooden crane, I'm going to hide for a while. That boy named Baikuan Su Yuan is looking for me everywhere. If he finds me here, he might mess up our good things. Kurogiri said truthfully. Baikuan Su Yuan, it doesn't matter. How powerful can he be? Can he be more powerful than All Might, the symbol of peace? No, Kurogiri replied. Hehehehe. After listening to Kurogiri's words, Tamura Shigaraki laughed. He can't even compare to All Might. Can he withstand Nomu's attack? Tamura Shigaraki continued to ask. No, can't, Kurogiri replied slowly. Then why are you still afraid of him? With him here, Nomu will just have a little more work to do. What's more, we are all here. What big things can he do as a student? Tamura Shigaraki analyzed the matter very carefully. Yes, Tamura Shigaraki is right, Kurogiri added. While saying this, Tamura Shigaraki's eyes returned to All Might. All Might, give up. Nomu is a super high-performance sandbag man who was transformed to withstand you in 100% state. Tamura Shigaraki laughed as he spoke. People's hair stood up when they heard it. Quote. All Might gasped for breath, and bright red blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He stretched out his hand and wiped it, staring at Nomu, except for a glance behind him. He deeply understands the responsibility he is standing here, and he is always reminding himself in his mind. You must not fall down. You must stand up. With great ability comes great responsibility. This sentence is vividly demonstrated by All Might. Quote. Suddenly, at this moment, white gas began to emit from All Might's body. Obviously, this was his body telling him that this pattern could no longer be maintained. The time is almost up, All Might said, clenching his fists tightly. The eyes are shining with the light of the face. I am a symbol of peace, how could I lose? All Might shouted in a deep voice. Then he took steps and ran straight towards Nomu. Although Nomu said he had no independent consciousness, at this moment, he still stepped forward and ran towards All Might. Boom! The two fists collided, immediately arousing a strong flow of air. All Might withdrew his fist, and then punched quickly, a beb. Nomu's speed could not keep up with All Might's speed. Boom! A punch hits Nomu's abdomen, but Nomu has the ability to absorb the impact, directly turning All Might's attack into nothing. However, at this moment, All Might shouted loudly and punched even faster. Boom boom boom. Punch after punch hit Nomu's abdomen. At this moment, if Nomu hadn't had the quirks to absorb the impact, I'm afraid Jin's body would have been in tatters long ago. Hoo. The power of All Might's fist directly caused a powerful air flow. Kurogiri and Tamura Shigaraki, who originally wanted to help, were unable to get close to each other. As long as your quirks are impact absorbing rather than impact ineffective, then there must be a limit. It was specially modified to block 100% of me, so I will use more than 100% of my power to knock you down. All Might shouted angrily while punching. Tamura Shigaraki, who was unable to get closer, was immediately stunned. Rumors, isn't he weakened? Why can he still exert such strength? Tamura Shigaraki said, anxiously reaching out and scratching his neck. With a sound of boom, All Might punched Nomu into the air. Immediately afterwards, he exerted force on the ground. When preparing to use a trick. Suddenly at this moment, his body banged, and a white mist surrounded him. And he has now returned to his thin appearance. It's over. Something went wrong at this critical moment. All Might's face was extremely stiff. Even if I punch now, I can't do any harm to Nomu at all. It's slowing down. Is this an opportunity? Nomu, come on, kill him. Tamura Shigaraki shouted. After Nomu received the order, he punched All Might directly in midair. It's over. Upon seeing this, All Might's face became very solemn, too. But at this moment, salon rolls suddenly rolled up around All Might. I'm very thick-skinned. I don't ask for anything now, I just want to pursue determination. All Might was startled when he saw this scene. He looked around and said in a deep voice, "This is a salon volume. Could it be that it's the Baekwan boy?" Boom. Nomu's fist hit the salon roll hard. You know, Nomu's basic strength is similar to All Might's. The impact of a punch can completely make the salon volume fly. However, it wasn't that Su Yuan couldn't take the punch, but that he wanted to save Ermeishi's life in such a short period of time. Only the salon roll is more suitable. As long as the salon roll weakens the power of Nomu's punch, All Might can survive. Although Sharon had already withstood most of the impact for All Might, he was still knocked down by the tailwind of the impact. However, at this moment, a giant hand made of sand suddenly appeared behind All Might and helped him. All Might was startled for a moment, thinking that Nomu appeared behind him again, but when he looked back, he saw the sand. He already understood what was going on. As the airflow disappeared, in the distance, a figure was seen quickly landing next to All Might. Baekwan boy, why are you here? All Might took back his solemn expression and replaced it with a smile. Seeing that All Might has returned to his thin appearance, look at the smile on his face. I don't know why, Su Yuan felt sour inside. It's not without reason that All Might can be liked by people. Perhaps in this country, the only hero worthy of the name is All Might. I have already been in this situation, but I still have a smile on my face, just to tell others that as long as I am here, everything will be fine. If it were anyone else who could do it, I am afraid that even number 2 Endeavor would choose to sacrifice a small part to survive. Of course, perhaps in the eyes of many people, Endeavor's approach is the most worthwhile. However, in All Might's eyes, only rescuing everyone is the most worthwhile thing. I'm here to help you, Su Yuan said in a deep voice. Why are you here? Where is Mr. Aizawa? Didn't he take you to evacuate? Could it be? All Might said, the smile on his face finally couldn't hold it anymore. As you might think, all the students in Class 1A have been dispersed, and the teacher is in a hard fight. Su Yuan said matter-of-factly. All Might clenched his fist tightly, but his face was full of helplessness. It's time to transform. If you force it, it is very likely that the villains will not be killed and you will be killed. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do at this moment? This sentence kept lingering in All Might's mind, too. Hey, hey, hey. All Might, what are you doing? Why are you in such a mess? Tamura Shigaraki couldn't help but complain when he saw All Might become such a thin person from a distance. Hearing this, All Might's face became even more ugly. Young boy Baekwan, I am giving you a task now. No matter what happens, everyone in Class 1A must work together to get out of here. All Might said calmly. Su Yuan was silent for a few seconds, and then replied, No. I refuse to answer. This is the best way at the moment. Please, Kitagawa boy, this monster called Nomu was developed by the villain specifically to deal with me. It will take me a while to defeat him. All Might said softly. How could Su Yuan not know All Might's intentions? He just wanted to let himself and others live. And he is here to exchange for this slim opportunity at the cost of his life. All Might, there was no chance to escape from the beginning. From the beginning, we had to fight until the end. There was no way out. Su Yuan said calmly. All Might frowned. How could he not know what Su Yuan said? He had no idea that he could hold on for a few minutes now. Once he fell, Kurogiri could use his own quirks to pursue him. Horizontal is a dead end, vertical is also a dead end. All Might shouted helplessly. You should take a rest first. This person called Nomu was actually developed to deal with you. Maybe my quirks will be effective on him. Su Yuan said softly. He. After hearing what Su Yuan said, Tamura Shigaraki couldn't help but laugh, and finally said, Kurogiri, did you hear that? All Might is the one who has no way. He said he wants to try you. It's not funny to say that. 0. Kurogiri glanced at Su Yuan, and suddenly flashed through his mind the scene where he had just been pressed down and beaten, and he couldn't help but swallow hard. Perhaps he really might be able to withstand 2 moves. Kurogiri suddenly said. Hearing this, Tamura Shigaraki looked at him in confusion. Kurogiri's words made him feel a little surprised. It seems you have quite a lot of confidence in him, Kurogiri. After saying that, he turned his attention back to Nomu. Go up, Nomu, kill them both. As soon as Nomu heard the order, he stepped forward and ran towards Su Yuan and the others. All Might was about to move forward, but at this moment, Su Yuan grabbed his shoulder and pulled him back. Let me try, Su Yuan said and ran towards Nomu. Su Yuan's reason for attacking was actually very simple. First of all, he didn't want to see All Might die right here. Secondly, it's just a good time to test your limits. Zitsa. The moment Su Yuan punched, his entire arm was directly covered with a layer of jet black. Bang! The 2 fists collided, causing a strong air flow. Su Yuan took a few steps back slightly. Obviously, his basic strength was not as good as Nomu's. However, whether it was All Might, Tamura Shigaraki or Kurogiri, they were all shocked when they saw that Su Yuan could withstand Nomu's blow head-on. Impossible, absolutely impossible, he can actually resist Nomu's punch head-on. Tamura Shigaraki said hastily at this moment. It seems that there is no reason for him to want to beat me. The words emerged in Heiyuan's mind. However, he didn't dare to say it. Once he said it, he would be really embarrassed. Is it true? Baekwon boy, it has only been a while, but your strength has grown to the terrifying level of 427. All Might whispered softly. Sure enough, the power of physical skills is still far behind Nomu. Su Yuan muttered. Kill him for me. Tamura Shigaraki shouted crazily behind Nomu. After Nomu heard the order, he rushed towards Su Yuan again. The speed is even faster than before. Su Yuan looked at Nomu and muttered. This time, let's see if you can still resist. Tamura Shigaraki sneered. Baekwon boy. Run. All Might was shocked when he saw this scene. However, with his current distance, he simply couldn't rush over and help Su Yuan resist the blow. As soon as his words fell, a bang came to his ears. In the next scene, All Might collapsed and knelt down. Because a headless Su Yuan appeared in All Might's eyes. Sure enough, I thought he was capable of so much, but it seems he can only punch with 1 punch. Kurogiri said calmly. All Might, have you seen that your apprentice, Kitagawa Su Yuan, died because of you? Tamura Shigaraki smiled very coldly. Work. All Might looked at Baekwon Su Yuan, and his whole body began to tremble with anger. Boom boom. He punched the ground twice, and the ground shattered. Unforgivable, All Might said in a deep voice, just as he was about to stand up and fight. On Su Yuan's neck, a ball of sand suddenly piled up, and then slowly formed a head. Not bad, a very good punch, but it's a pity that you used it to restrain All Might, and I just restrained your ability. Su Yuan said calmly. On the side, Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and All Might were all dumbfounded. What is going on? His head was knocked off, why did it grow back? Could it be, he also has a similar ability to super regeneration? Tamura Shigaraki said in disbelief. At the same time, he began to become anxious and kept scratching his neck. In an instant, red scratches were left on his neck. Tamura Shigaraki, I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling. Kurogiri said towards Shigaraki. Tamura Shigaraki said nothing and kept scratching his neck. Seeing this scene, Kurogiri knew that Tamura Shigaraki was in trouble, so he ordered. Tamura Shigaraki, calm down. He only has a super regeneration ability similar to Nomu, but in terms of strength, he is no match for Nomu. Kurogiri said slowly. Tamura Shigaraki paused, stopped what he was doing, and said softly, yes. He just has super regeneration similar to Nomu, but it doesn't mean he is invincible. As for All Might now, he is also in a daze. The most important thing on his mind right now is How on earth could he recover his head? Super regeneration ability, or something else, such as immortality and immortality. No, 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 it's impossible. This is too ridiculous. How can human beings have the ability to be immortal? If so, wouldn't it be against the heavens? Looking at Su Yuan's confident expression, All Might fell into deep thought again. Young Baikuan boy, are you hiding some terrible secret? Nomu, keep going, use your fastest speed, see if his super regeneration speed is faster, or your punch speed is faster. Tamura Shigaraki gave the order again. Hearing this, Nomu ran towards Su Yuan again. However, Su Yuan was not panicked at all. To be honest, the ability of elementalization was specifically designed to restrain such brainless and powerful monsters. Bang bang bang, countless fists all hit Su Yuan's body. At this moment, Su Yuan was like a hornet's nest, with dozens of holes remaining on his body. However, the hole is slowly healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The expression lasted for several minutes, but still had no effect at all. Tamura Shigaraki's face began to stiffen. You have impact absorption and super regeneration, so ordinary attacks should have no effect on you. On the way, Shi Yuan suddenly said. Of course, if you want to cause harm to Nomu, it would be more effective to cut off the flesh bit by bit. Of course, whether you will be given the opportunity to do that is another matter. Tamura Shigaraki said with a sneer. Really, I am dissatisfied with you saying that I have too many ways to deal with Nomu, but I have very effective way that can solve all of you together. Su Yuan said. Let's solve it together, then you can try it. Tamura Shigaraki regarded Su Yuan's words as a fart. If All Might said this, he still thought it was possible, but he heard it from the mouth of a little brat. I don't know if others believe it or not, but Tamura Shigaraki will never believe it. The corners of Su Yuan's mouth raised slightly. He didn't want to refute what Tamura Shigaraki said. Su Yuan slapped the ground with one hand. Quicksand Waterfall. Quicksand Waterfall is a move that can change the environment of an entire area and instantly bury villains 200 meters underground. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, the ground under his hands began to crack rapidly. Kakaka. As the ground cracked, the entire USJ ground began to shake. USJ's other simulated disaster areas. At this moment, whether it was the people from League of Villains or the people from Shongying's side, the fighting stopped. He looked around, trying to guard against being attacked while trying to find out what was going on. What happened? An earthquake? A member of the League of Villains suddenly asked. Who knows, maybe it's a hero who's coming to reinforce us. Another man replied. How is it possible? The communications have been destroyed by us, and even the gates entering and exiting USJ are blocked by us. How can it be possible for the heroic people to come for support? That seems to make sense. This shock is because of Almax. Have no idea. The ground is cracked. Kaminari Denki was the first to observe the situation on the surface. You see, not only is the ground cracked, but the cracked soil is slowly becoming loose and turning into sand at the speed of the naked eye. Jiro Kyoka added. It's him, it's definitely him. Bakugo Katsuki was the first to react. Yes, this was definitely done by Su Yuan. Izuku replied. Among the heroes, the only ones I know more about are Midoriya Izuku and Bakugo Katsuki. Really or not, who is he? Kaminari Denki asked in shock. Is this his strength? It's also terrifying, Iida said. I have embarrassed Class 1A. Hiroshima Eijiro said. Me too, I feel like me too. Listening to what they said, Bakugo Katsuki frowned, jumped up, and walked up high. Where are you going, Kachan? Midoriya Izuku asked. But Bakugo Katsuki ignored it. He ran on his own, but Izuku had no choice but to quickly follow up. Same time, seeing this situation, Kurogiri felt increasingly uneasy. What on earth did this kid do? The ground began to shake. Tamura Shigaraki said in a deep voice. Tamura Shigaraki, I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling. My intuition tells me that I must stop him. Kurogiri suddenly said. I don't need you to tell me. I can make such a movement, and with his confident eyes, how could the power of this move be so small? Tamura Shigaraki glanced at Kurogiri out of the corner of his eye, and then hurriedly said to Nomu, hurry up, it won't be good if something goes wrong. Hearing this, Nomu was about to jump, but at this moment, a ball of sand suddenly rose up as if it were spiritual. Wrap Nomu directly, follow closely, and drag it into the abyss at a speed invisible to the naked eye. The billowing smoke quickly filled the surrounding area. No, Tamura Shigaraki, something is coming towards us. As soon as Kurogiri finished speaking, the sand rushed out of the smoke like water, swallowing it in all directions. They jumped quickly and started to dodge. In less than a minute, the entire USJ training ground had turned into a desert. USJ training ground, somewhere high. Smelly. Bakugo Katsuki looked at the desert accompanied by smoke and dust, and suddenly said, "Ah, what's wrong?" Midoriya Izuku replied, "You should know, right?" Bakugo Katsuki continued to ask. "Know what?" Midoriya Izuku asked. "Stop pretending, this isn't Su Yuan's true strength," Bakugo Katsuki said with a stiff expression. Indeed, in the battle in Shikyun 2, Su Yuan's eyes always revealed only confidence. I don't know," Midoriya Izuku replied truthfully. "This monster, what's the hero doing here?" Bakugo Katsuki said with some reluctance. When there was still Yue, Bakugo Katsuki's goal was to be the #1 hero and then catch up with All Might. Now, there is Su Yuan. I am so crazy about being #1. I am being abused every day and my heart is about to collapse. The entire USJ training ground has turned into a desert. It's amazing, Kirishima Eijiro said excitedly. Pipe 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 pipe. Did Su Yuan really do this? This question is undoubtedly the suspicion of many people who do not know Su Yuan here. Just when everyone was suspicious of each other, Iida spoke. This is the strength of our squad leader, this is the strength of our Class 1A, Baekwan Su Yuan. Yeah, it's so awesome. Kirishima Eijiro couldn't help but curse. What on earth did this kid do? He turned the USJ training ground into a desert. Tamura Shigaraki's first words when he fell to the ground after escaping the impact of the desert. "Tamura Shigaraki, do you still remember the news in Hyuan town?" Kurogiri suddenly said. As soon as he said these words, Tamura Shigaraki's eyes suddenly glazed over, and his mind suddenly recalled the news from Haijun not long ago. Hyuan town. Yes, it's the news that a dense forest suddenly turned into a desert. Kurogiri thought Tamura Shigaraki couldn't remember it and continued to explain. Could this be done by the same person? Tamura Shigaraki said. I think it's very possible. Kurogiri said solemnly. That's right. Tamura Shigaraki suddenly remembered something, quickly looked around and said. Where did my Nomu go? No, I don't know. Your Nomu has been sold into the abyss by me. Su Yuan replied. Buried under the ground by you. After Tamura Shigaraki heard what Su Yuan said, the next moment he couldn't help laughing and continued. How can I trap my Nomu with such a vulgar attack? In Tamura Shigaraki's eyes, Nomu has the same basic power as All Might. A vulgar attack like being buried underground is simply ineffective against Nomu. Nomu, come out and kill him. Tamura Shigaraki shouted. However, there was really no movement on the ground. Seeing this, Tamura Shigaraki frowned slightly. Tamura Shigaraki, I have a bad feeling again. From the side, Kurogiri suddenly spoke again. Shut up, Tamura Shigaraki said in a deep voice, and then shouted again, Nomu, stand up and kill him. But, no matter how much Tamura Shigaraki shouted, there was no movement on the ground, too. Suddenly, at this moment, Su Yuan's voice sounded. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that your Nomu was buried 200 meters deep underground. I think he may not have the ability to get up. Hearing this, Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and All Might were all frightened by Su Yuan's words. How terrifying it is to be buried 200 meters underground in an instant. All Might didn't dare to say it directly, but he could bury the villains 200 meters deep in an instant. Are you kidding me? 200 meters, Tamura Shigaraki said in a deep voice. Believe it or not, it has nothing to do with me. Su Yuan said expressionlessly. Just as Su Yuan finished speaking, Tamura Shigaraki shouted, Kurogiri. Kurogiri nodded. Got it, Tamura Shigaraki. After saying that, a whirlpool suddenly appeared in front of Tamura Shigaraki. Tamura Shigaraki quickly rushed his hand directly into the whirlpool. The moment he rushed in, a vortex appeared behind Su Yuan. Immediately afterwards, Tamura Shigaraki's hand stretched out directly from the whirlpool and struck Su Yuan on the back. "Baekwan boy, be careful," All Might shouted. Just when Tamura Shigaraki and Kurogiri had succeeded, a wall of sand suddenly appeared behind Su Yuan. Obviously, this is Su Yuan's automatic defense being triggered. There was a pop sound. Tamura Shigaraki directly grabbed a handful of sand. At this moment, not to mention how ugly his face was. "Tamura Shigaraki, reach back quickly," Kurogiri reminded. Tamura Shigaraki was startled, and without thinking much, he quickly stretched out his arm, but his entire arm was already covered in sand. If he had been slower, he would probably have been covered in sand. "Not only did they bury my Nomu in the ground, but they also buried my hands. Why do I have such quirks? It's simply cheating." At this moment, Tamura Shigaraki was once again trapped and there was chaos. Suddenly, at this moment, Su Yuan ran towards them quickly. "Tamura Shigaraki, he's coming," Kurogiri ordered and quickly stood in front of Tamura Shigaraki, trying to teleport Su Yuan to other places again. However, Su Yuan, who had already been careless once, could not be fooled so easily this time. He flashed, grabbed Kurogiri's head, and pushed it to the ground. There was a boom. Kurogiri's head was pushed into the desert. "You're blocking my way." After pressing it, Su Yuan ignored Kurogiri, but jumped up, his right hand turned into a sand blade, and swung directly at Tamura Shigaraki. Desert sword. The words fell. Suddenly, there was a swish sound. A blade of light struck directly at Tamura Shigaraki. Tamura Shigaraki was so frightened that he tried to dodge, but the hands that were holding him were cut off by Yuan's desert sword. The hands all over Tamura Shigaraki's body belonged to his own family members. Only by holding them on his own body can he feel safe. The hand that was already broken was not only cut off again, but also several were knocked away by the impact. This almost caused Tamura Shigaraki to collapse. Looking at the hand that was knocked away, Tamura Shigaraki's breathing began to become rapid. "Wong is good. You're done," Su Yuan said, slowly raising his right hand. Suddenly, the sand on the ground suddenly floated. Dozens of sharp sand spines slowly formed. Waved his hand. The next moment, all the sand spurs flew over to mock Tamura Shigaraki. But at this moment, a cloud of purple smoke suddenly enveloped Tamura Shigaraki directly. The sand spurs all hit the ball of Kurogiri. Su Yuan was stunned when he saw this scene, and subconsciously looked back at the place where he had just pressed Kurogiri to the ground. At this time, there was no one there. "The vitality is so tenacious," Su Yuan muttered, and the next second, he ran directly in the direction of Tamura Shigaraki. While waving his hands, the sand in the ground suddenly floated up and piled up, forming two huge sand hands. "Drink," Su Yuan shouted while running. Two huge sand hands smacked in the direction of Tamura Shigaraki at the same time. However, there was no vibration at all on the ground. Apparently, even the two giant sand hands were teleported away by Kurogiri. When Su Yuan arrived, the purple smoke disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. They ran pretty fast. Su Yuan muttered to himself as he looked at the place where they disappeared. At this time, All Might slowly walked to Su Yuan's side and said softly, "Thank you, Baekwan boy, you were really helpful today." After saying that, All Might paused for a while and continued with a stiff smile. "Without you, I really can't imagine what would have happened." Hearing this, Su Yuan grinned and said, "You're so complimentary, All Might. Come to think of it, is Nomu really buried 200 meters underground by you?" All Might asked. "Of course," Su Yuan said truthfully. After hearing Su Yuan's words, All Might was silent for a few seconds, but it was not difficult to see the shock on his face. "Correct." Suddenly, Su Yuan remembered something and said, "Do you still need to hide the secret of your body?" All Might was silent this time for a longer time than before, seeming to be thinking about something. After about a minute, he slowly said, "Well, the reason why I hid it is to prevent the citizens from falling into panic. I think you should understand. This is my approach, Baekwan boy," All Might said, with a solemn expression on his face. This was the first time Su Yuan saw him. In fact, All Might also wanted to announce this shocking news early. However, the new symbol of peace has not yet emerged, so he cannot be anxious. If he is anxious, he will be in chaos. Su Yuan nodded. Well, I understand what you mean. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, an explosion suddenly came from the place. All Might's eyes were blank for a few seconds, then he said, "Young man from Baikuan, you are doing me a favor." Quote. You said. Su Yuan replied calmly, "My current identity is not convenient for me to appear in the eyes of my classmates. I want you to support other students." All Might said softly. Su Yuan smiled. Of course, I am their monitor. After saying that, Su Yuan turned around and waved his hand. Turning his back to All Might, he said, "I'm leaving, please be careful." Yes, All Might replied happily. Looking at Su Yuan's back, his eyes became a little moist at this moment. He murmured to himself, come on, the buds of the new era's symbol of peace are coming out. Soon, he will officially announce to the world that a new symbol of peace has been born. At this time, on the other side of the USJ training ground, Yaoyorozu Momo was fighting with other League of Villains members. Bang bang bang. The clash of weapons continued. League of Villains had many members, and Yaoyorozu Momo was not too weak. However, how could they withstand the attacks of villains one after another? Kitagawa-kun, Midoriya-kun, Bakugo-kun, and Shoto Todoroki, where have all our fighting power gone? Jiro Kyoka cursed. As soon as the critical moment came, they all disappeared, leaving only some weak people who were holding on here. 10 of them surrounded them back to back to prevent others from sneak attacks. Each of them held an iron rod created by Yaoyorozu Momo and pointed it at the villains. At this moment, there are at least 3 villains. So tired, so tired. We won't die here today. Not long ago, I was just a junior high school student. Minoru Mineta shouted. Minoru Mineta, quirks, super sticky, can pluck unlimited grape-shaped spheres from the head, and the grapes will be super sticky after being picked. Can stick to villains and restrict movement. Adhesion depends on individual physical condition and can last up to 1 day. But if too much is removed at one time, it will cause heavy bleeding on the head. Obviously, his head is now full of blood. Shut up, Yaoyorozu Momo replied coldly. However, at this time, Minoru Mineta was so panicked that he could not keep his mouth shut. Or, All Might will definitely come to save us, right? He will, right? Minoru Mineta continued. I'm curious about how you got into the hero's exam. Jiro Kyoka retorted. Now is not the time to talk about this problem, but whether All Might will come to save us. Minoru Mineta was so anxious that he almost started crying. No, what we should do now is how to kill 10 bloody paths. Kirishima Eijiro spoke. The reason why All Might didn't come must be because he has now encountered a formidable opponent. We will be Hero S in the future. How can Hero S expect other Hero S to come and save themselves? Iida said in a deep voice. Whoa, Kirishima Eijiro activated quirks, his hands hardened, and he said excitedly, you were really passionate about what you said. At this time, behind the villains, a burly bearman pushed away the crowd with a big axe, and said in a deep voice, it's really useless, let me do it. With that said, everyone moved out of the way. The bear man immediately began to run wildly, and then his size began to become huge, and the axe in his hand naturally did the same. Bang bang bang. If the ground hadn't turned into sand at this time, the vibration would have been loud. Ah, someone big is coming. Minoru Mineta's eyes almost popped out of his sockets when he saw the scene in front of him. Of course, when most of them saw this scene, they sat paralyzed on the ground. What are you doing? Run away, Kirishima Eijiro shouted. Escape, can't escape, it's over. Go to hell, you scumbags. As soon as he finished speaking, the huge axe began to fall. Just when everyone in Class 1A thought it was over. Suddenly, at this critical moment, a figure appeared in front of them. The dark palm directly grasped the axe. The airflow driven by the axe head hits directly downwards. Most of the sand around Su Yuan flew up due to the impact. This is Su Yuan. Su Yuan is here, our monitor is here. It's so amazing, I can actually resist this axe with one hand. What happened to his arm? Why did it turn pitch black? Yeah, what happened? His hand. The bear man's own blow was actually caught with one hand, which also surprised him. Who are you? The bear asked. I'm sorry, you scared the classmates in our class. Su Yuan said in a deep voice. Immediately, he exerted a slight force on his palm, and cracks appeared on the huge axe. Then, it fell to pieces on the sand. The bear man was shocked, his face changed drastically, and he suddenly felt very uneasy in his heart. His instinct was telling himself to run away quickly, or he would die. The bear man threw the weapon directly, turned around quickly, and ran wildly. At this time, Su Yuan slowly turned his head and smiled towards them. Everyone, thank you for your hard work. Leave the rest to me. After saying that, his eyes returned to villains. The next moment, an invisible force began to be released directly from his body in all directions. Plop. First, the villains closest to Su Yuan fell directly to the ground. Hey, what are you doing? As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes turned white and he fell to the ground. Ba bang bang. In a few seconds, more than 300 or 400 people fell to the ground, their eyes turned white. This sight undoubtedly shocked the others in Class 1A. What happened? Villains all fell to the ground. I don't know either. Ju Sanchi, could it be, is it Su Yuan? Su Yuan, did you do all this? Yaoyorozu Momo finally couldn't help it, ran forward and asked. Perhaps even All Might would be very surprised when he saw this sight. Standing there, doing nothing, 300 to 400 people all fell to the ground. Who else could not be shocked? Su Yuan turned around and laughed easily. Well, I used a mental attack on them, and now, they have all fainted. Psychic attack. Wow, he's so handsome. Kirishima Eijiro also gathered in front of Su Yuan and praised him. It's too exaggerated. So many people were killed in an instant. Jiro Kyoka added. Indeed, they are all from Class 1A, and almost the entire class fought against these villains, and despite all their efforts, they couldn't get rid of them. As soon as Su Yuan arrived, he didn't do anything, and all the villains fell to the ground. Now, in front of Su Yuan, they don't dare to say that they are from Class 1A for fear of embarrassing Su Yuan. That's amazing. Su Yuan. Iida asked. Yes, Kitagawa-chan, it's incredible. Asui Suyu also walked forward and said in surprise. Of course, Su Yuan would not explain too much to them, he would just say a mental attack to send them away. Suddenly, at this moment, a voice sounded again. By the way, Su Yuan, we seem to see your hands were black just now. What's going on? Yaoyorozu Momo asked. Yes, Su Yuan, is your hand okay? Liang Kyoka asked. Su Yuan was stunned for a moment, then casually gave a reason and said, it's okay, it's because of my quirks, which can enhance the defense and attack power of the arm. With that said, Su Yuan activated armament hockey again, and half of his arm was once again covered in pitch black. That's it. Su Yuan changed and showed them once. After all, this armament hockey cannot be hidden, and there is no need to hide anything. Conqueror's hockey, fate does not exist in this world, the only one who can do it is himself. Whoa, at this moment, Kirishima Eijiro walked up to Susanagi and hardened his arm. It's a bit like my quirks. Mine also enhances attack and defense, but the color won't turn black. Kirishima Eijiro said with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, someone started to tease him. Can you compare with him? Su Yuan's quirks are powerful at long range and in close combat, and they can transform into sand on such a large scale. Yaoyorozu Momo said with a smile. It's just, there's no comparison at all, one day and one ground. Jiro Kyoka also said with a smile. Aren't you talking nonsense? If I could compete with Su Yuan, those villains just now would have been beaten to the ground by me. Kirishima Eijiro said and started laughing. In response to what they said, Su Yuan just smiled and then said, other places may still need my support. I'll leave first. Please be careful. As soon as Su Yuan finished speaking, a pair of sand wings appeared on his back and flew into the sky. This quirks. I'm so envious, so powerful and practical. Kirishima Eijiro's eyes sparkled. Nonsense, none of us here would be envious if we saw it. Jiro Kyoka replied. After more than an hour, all the remaining villains were captured. Fortunately, only one person from Class 1A was seriously injured. Of course, Aizawa Shota also suffered serious injuries due to excessive use of quirks. Later, someone informed Shongying that the principal and others had also arrived. The villains are all handled by the police. Su Yuan and the others originally returned to Shongying immediately, but the principal suddenly changed his mind and announced something on the spot. Earlier, the principal said a lot of useless things, saying that it was all the fault of Shongying's negligence that led to what happened today. Now, let me tell you one thing. I hope the students will remember that what happened today should not be disclosed to the outside world. The principal said. Although they didn't know what the principal's intention was, they still nodded slightly. Do you know why? The principal continued to ask. Everyone shook their heads. Tell me first, what did you see in this USJ incident? The principal said calmly. All Might is very powerful. Iida replied. Well, what else? Kitagawa Su Yuan. Kitagawa Su Yuan is also very powerful. You see, the entire USJ training ground has been turned into a desert by his quirks. Kirishima Eijiro replied. Yes, Kirishima-chan is right. Kitagawa-chan knocked down most of the villains in an instant. This strength is so terrifying. Asui Suyu glanced at Su Yuan standing in front of him and said. Very good, what you said is all right. Baekwon Su Yuan is very powerful, so don't publicize this matter too much, otherwise. After a pause, the principal continued. We will only push Baekwon Su Yuan to the edge of the cliff. Many people in the dark forces will target him. In this way, his life will be threatened. The principal slowly analyzed the pros and cons to the people in Class 1A. Of course, the big reason for this was that the principal didn't know Su Yuan's strength. For his safety, the people in Class 1A were just told not to spread the word. If the principal knew Su Yuan's true strength, he would want the whole world to know that there was a person named Baekwon Su Yuan in Shangli. Listening to the principal's explanation, everyone suddenly realized. At this time, Tamura Shigaraki's side. A purple vortex suddenly appeared in the dim bar. Tamura Shigaraki fell directly out of the whirlpool and lay on the ground in a panic. It hurts. The bones in the body are crushed in many places. Tamura Shigaraki said with a frown. Of course, before Black Season, he originally wanted to return here for the first time. However, at that time, Su Yuan suddenly launched the giant hand of sand attack. In order to prevent the base from being exposed, he could only teleport Tamura Shigaraki and the giant hand of sand to other places first. And Tamura Shigaraki's bones were crushed by the giant hand of sand. It's a complete defeat. It's a complete defeat. All of his men must have been arrested, and Nomu was also buried underground. All Might seems to be weakening, but he doesn't seem to be weakening. No, it's all because of that person named Baekwon Su Yuan. If it weren't for him, All Might would have been killed. It's all his fault, all his fault. Tamura Shigaraki shook the only uninjured fist and hit the ground. Then he raised his head slightly and shouted at the screen hanging on the wall, It's different from what you said, sir. As soon as Tamura Shigaraki finished speaking, a voice suddenly came from the screen. It's not different, it's just that I was too optimistic and underestimated them. It's a pity that the group name we chose is a cheap name like League of Villains. Quote. Speaking of which, where is Nomu, my collaborative work with my husband? Nomu. Tamura Shigaraki paused, then his pupils widened, and he said in a deep voice, Yes, Nomu. Nomu was buried 200 meters underground by one of UA's students. What? As soon as he finished speaking, there was silence on the other side of the screen for a few seconds. Too strong, too strong. That kid is too strong. Nomu and Ben can't do any harm to him. Tamura Shigaraki said in a deep voice. Tamura Shigaraki is right, that kid's quirks are really too powerful. He turned the situation around by himself. If it weren't for him, we would have definitely won this battle. Kurogiri added on the side. Tamura Shigaraki, you are so shameless, said the mysterious person on the screen. Sir, you can't say that. How weak can a person who turned the entire USJ training ground into a desert in an instant be? Tamura Shigaraki retorted. Desert, are you talking about All Might's disciple, Baekwon Su Yuan? Another mysterious man asked on the screen. That's right, the teacher, the one named Kitagawa Su Yuan, turned the whole situation around in an instant, and Kurogiri and I were almost killed by him. Tamura Shigaraki said truthfully. One of the people on this screen is Tamura Shigaraki's teacher, All for One. All for One is the true mastermind behind the League of Villains, is Tamura Shigaraki's teacher, and possesses the opposite quirks to One. FBR all AIICFOR, One walking quirks, and, giving others, quirks too. After hearing what Tamura Shigaraki said, All for One couldn't help but be shocked and muttered, did even Tamura Shigaraki and Kurogiri almost get killed? In fact, All for One, he had already inquired a lot about Su Yuan when All Might announced his apprentice. However, the information at that time showed that he was just a person who was a little stronger than ordinary people, and he did not pay too much attention to this matter at that time. He thought that his purpose was just to kill All Might, and he was indifferent to his so-called apprentice. However, after not seeing him for a while, he has grown into such a terrifying person. He all Forohe has to pay close attention to this so-called Baekwan Su Yuan. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.